This is the biggest storm we're ever gonna, so far, stay at anchor for. This is not a fun night whatsoever, and we're still dragging. We keep dragging. Heeling like almost at a 30-degree angle.
Gusting to like 52 or 60 knots.
I think we survived pretty much a Category 1 storm.
That was terrifying. I was really scared. I'm kind of excited and nervous at the same time.
I'm going to attempt to lift the anchor all on my own. Untangle the jib. Watch out, waves. We're back at the anchorage. So we swamped the boat. That was the biggest wave I've ever hit.
It's not fair. I don't see with my eye. I'm bringing all my babies inside the boat for tonight.
Just bringing the surfboard in so we have a little less windage off the back of the boat. There's gonna be a ton of wind tonight. It looks like it's peaking right now, right around 12 o'clock at 40 knots. And right at that moment, it's going to switch 180 degrees back the other direction and continue blowing quite hard. So we're just getting everything ready. I ended up putting a second snubber on our line further down, about 25-30 feet down the line. So if that one happens, that one's taking most of the load and it's, you know, a good amount of stretch. So it should absorb any of the wave action that we have. And if that one snaps, I at least have a shorter one that will catch the chain and it won't bring up solid on the chain and be pulling really hard on the bow roller. So this is the biggest storm we're ever gonna, so far, stay at anchor for. And we're relatively protected, but I mean, we can't be any more protected than we are right now. Unless maybe we went on a mooring, but then we gotta trust the mooring's good. I kind of trust our Mantus Anchor more than a mooring at this point, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. Well, it looks like she's holding okay. Got the double snubber, making the load a little less on each snubber, and I think we're gonna be okay because it's not gonna get too much more windy than this. So, this is not a fun night whatsoever. I wish we could have gotten some of this on film, but it's just way too dangerous out there to be trying to film and do the things that we're trying to do. So we've reset the anchor 3 times and we have plenty of scope. It's like we have good, probably 100 feet of scope out and 10 feet of water. And we're still dragging. We keep dragging. So we've set it 3 times. Here's our favorite little map. You can kind of see, well, at one point we were dragging over here. This is where our anchor originally was. We dragged over there. Then the wind switched over. We set the anchor again this way, and we kept dragging this way towards this buoy, which actually isn't down here, it's actually right over here. And yeah, we've basically been dragging back and forth, well, mostly now in this direction because this is where all the wind is coming from. And yeah, I'd say it's like 40 knot gusts, and it feels quite dangerous to be pulling up 100 feet of chain as fast as you can. because it's hard to judge. Alex is at the helm trying to judge how much speed she needs to not go and set the anchor in the opposite direction, but still drive fast enough to deal with all the swell and the waves. And we're protected in here. Like, we have a break wall all the way around. The waves are building inside of the break wall enough that they're smashing over the front of the boat, and I'm getting completely drenched just pulling up the chain and dealing with the snubbers and everything. And I hope the anchor just holds, because basically I dropped it on top of the moorings that were over there because I just got tired of dropping it and it dragging and dropping it and dragging. And honestly, if it gets caught on a mooring cable, I'll be happy, because I'll just dive on it tomorrow or when we're ready to leave, and I'll pull it out if I have to. But right now, I just hope that it grabs for a change, because the gusts come through and the boat is on heeling like almost at a 30-degree angle, because the boat doesn't always stay perfectly downwind or nose into the wind. And as soon as it falls off a little, it's just crazy. I don't know how you'd anchor in more than this, and our anchor is geared. It's set up for heavy winds. It's not a storm anchor, so I definitely see why you would need a storm anchor. Anyway, that's enough talking for me. I need to just like chill out for a second.
Well, we survived the worst of the night when it was gusting to like 52 or 60 knots. It was insane. I didn't really sleep much yesterday night. Actually, after resetting that anchor 2 or 3 times, can't even remember, we ended up going down below and watched some TV shows because we just both couldn't sleep. We're a little too stressed, a little too much on edge. And finally around 3 in the morning, when we actually said that the anchor hadn't moved for like over an hour, we were like, okay, maybe we can actually go to sleep and try to get a little bit of rest. But then first thing this morning, woke up pretty early and the wind's been howling like crazy, so time for gusts to like 48 knots today. And the wind isn't quite as strong though. I think it's dropping down to like 22 knots instead of being like 30, 35 consistent knots. And the waves also have shrunk quite a bit. Like they're actually little baby waves now. It's way more manageable. Yesterday night they were pretty big. The whole bow of the boat was just like dipped right in, and the whole breakwater beside us, there was just like waves just like splashing over top. So about another 12 hours or so to go, and then it should calm down. I'm tired. I'm so tired. What did you think about yesterday night?
I'm happy that we made it through, and happy that we, as a team, we did really quite well. I'm really proud of Alex, because she was able to stay quite calm and take deep breaths and manage the situation from the helm while I was at the bow, just making sure I kept my fingers all away from anything that would smash my fingers or get my fingers caught in between a chain and between a cleat. And it was just, I felt less scared than I thought I would be, I guess. At one point I was fearful, but my adrenaline started going, and I was just trying to focus on what I needed to do. And honestly, I didn't have a whole lot of fear. Like, even when the bow was completely diving underwater, there was a foot of water coming over the bow. It just felt like, well, this is what I have to get this done. We're dragging. There's no other option. I mean, we dragged 3 times. The first anchor we set, it held pretty well, but we were slowly dragging just a little bit. And then the wind shift happened. So when the wind shift happened, we had a small window to actually go out and reset the anchor in the proper direction. So that's what we did. We backed off on the anchor in the new direction of the wind. And it actually happened about an hour before it was forecasted. So, but I'm just grateful that the wind calmed down for that period of time, because the waves just kind of died, and it felt like we were in the eye of a storm or something. And So we backed off on it, and that held for maybe an hour or so, and then we had to pull up the entire anchor because we were dragging into a buoy, and we were basically going to hit it if we just left it. So Alex manned the helm. Somehow our 13 horsepower engine was enough to get enough slack off the anchor and then to pull up the anchor, and we set it a little bit further. Put out, the first time we only had 7-to-1 scope. The next time we put out roughly 10-to-1 scope. I was kind of frantically just throwing out chain. And then we dragged again. It still wasn't holding. Actually, at one point, the gusts must have been coming through because the whole boat was just shaking. We were heeling right over when the anchor was coming off on an angle. And we were starting to drag really quickly. So we got all our gear back on, went back out, and redid the whole process, pulling in the anchor. I'm telling Alex to go forward. I'm pulling in the anchor as fast as I can. I never realized how much of a workout it would be to pull in 100 feet of chain. But we pulled it in. Alex went forward. We got the anchor up. And then we reset it basically like on the line of the mooring balls that were over here. There's 2 empty mooring balls. And I'm not even 100% sure if we're actually caught on like some chain or something that's going across between mooring balls or what. But once we set that anchor, put out 150 feet of chain, which is all the chain we have, set a really long snubber, something like 30 feet, and a backup snubber just in case that one were to chafe through and snap. And we held all night. We barely moved. So thank you. I'm very grateful to have the Mantus Anchor, but at the same time, with the conditions we had, I'm not 100% sure on the specs. I kind of think maybe the specs are a little bit overestimated, but that's just my opinion. Maybe the gusts had everything to do with it because the gusts were over what the specs call for, but I just figured that would be kind of built in because it wasn't consistent. But I guess the gusts were fairly long gusts, so it wasn't just like a small burst of gust. It was a very strong one. And essentially, we just looked at a newscast, and so I think we survived pretty much a Category 1 storm. And I mean, it's still here today, but the winds are dying down a little bit. The gusts are still quite strong, but you can tell just by the way the boat is sitting, it's way calmer than it was yesterday with the bow diving into the boat and just us moving around like crazy. So I'm very proud of both of us. I'm proud of our boat, and I think in the future, if we have to deal with anything more than 50 knots, gusts or no gusts, we're gonna set up our Bruce in another type of anchoring setup. Basically set up our Bruce with the chain going to the front of our Mantus, and then from our Mantus we'll have our full scope out, and we'll see if that can add a little bit of holding power. So that was an interesting night, to say the least.
That was such a scary night. When I first got out to try to relieve some of the pressure of the anchor, it was pouring rain. It was insane, and it was dark, and there was huge waves, and I was so stressed. I knew what I had to do, but stress was kind of taking over me. And Corey went to the bow, and I was at the helm trying to keep the boat pointed into the wind, but every time there would be a big wind gust, it catch the bow, and the whole boat would just pretty much go sideways into like meter and a bit kind of swell. So that was terrifying. I was really scared, and at one point I started talking to myself. I was like, okay, Alex, you got this. We're gonna be fine. Just keep driving. And I started talking to the boat too. I was like, Wildly Intrepid, be freaking intrepid right now. You've gotta do this. And I was just like revving the engine to point it back into the wind, and just, oh my, it was just insane. And I had to try to keep an eye on Corey at the bow because he was giving me directions of like forward, stop, right, left with his hands. And it was dark, but we had the deck light on. But the really annoying thing was that the wind was blowing so hard that it was blowing the rain like straight into my face. So I was trying to look at Corey and look at where I was pointing with the boat. But it was painful, like my eyes were just watering and being soaking wet by the rain. But I was so grateful when we kind of dropped the anchor back on, and I could actually go down below and be dry. We still had to go back out later on, but at least the rain had died down, and I think at that point I was a bit more calm because I had talked myself through the process, and I was a little bit more confident in what the boat could handle. But I was an intense night, and I'm kind of tired right now, so we're making some coffee.
Able to hold it a bit in place, no? Is there anyone behind the wheel actually? No, he's in the front trying to tie off his jib. Poor guy, man. So I'm really grateful to have sea tow, but on the other hand, after what I just saw that boat dealing with, I'm not 100% sure if I'm confident in the abilities of the people that are going to be rescuing me. That might not be the case. There's probably plenty of very good professionals out there, but the people I just watched just tied a sailboat that basically dragged overnight. We saw him having trouble yesterday and anchoring his boat, and I guess, well, he ended up picking up a mooring ball the night before last, but maybe he was anchored yesterday because I thought I saw a sailboat that was dragging, or at least not holding very well, over on that side, and he wasn't there this morning. So he got pulled in by a couple of boats, and it seems like, I don't know why they don't seem to know what they're doing, because they just tied him to a mooring ball that was clearly dragging because it's no longer in the mooring field, and it was beside our boat. And then by the time they actually tied it to him, like, they saw it, they went to pick it up and they couldn't pick it up, so I guess they decided, oh, that must be solid, and they decided to tie him to it because his anchor wasn't holding. But you've already seen the mooring drift. What makes you think that when you tie a boat to it, it's going to stop drifting? I don't understand. So that just really makes me feel nervous about people who are going to be rescuing us, because he is now almost on the rocks over there, and yeah, they're trying to deal with that again. So yeah, not the best situation.
So we survived the storm. It's actually calm outside. I mean, there's still some wind, but it's not quite as bad, which is perfect for us because we've been waiting for a bit of a weather window to do our first passage on the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, we're not going across, but we're leaving from here, which is Atlantic Highlands, around Sandy Hook in New Jersey, and we're gonna go down the coast to Cape May, which is just at the entrance of the Delaware Bay or river. And so that's about 130 nautical miles. So for us, it might take maybe 30 hours, more or less. Kind of depends on the wind. It's a little stronger at first. We're getting, mind you, it's like 15 knots, which is perfect, but then there's still a little bit of gusts up to 28, and then it's kind of slowly diminishing in the afternoon. And then tomorrow morning might be a little bit lighter, so we'll see how that goes. But we've got the right wind direction, so we're gonna try to take a jump for it and try to get ourselves salty. I'm kind of excited and nervous at the same time, just because it's like our biggest kind of crossing passage, but kind of really excited at the same time. It'll be fun.
So we're just getting everything prepped. What do we gotta do before we leave?
Well, we have to readjust the kayak outside because we had it adjusted for our 50, 60 knot winds. But right now it's kind of in the way of the jib sheets. So we're gonna do that. Gonna tidy up the dishes, put everything away, secure it all. The back here is a little bit of a mess. And then it's pretty much try to retrieve our anchor and set up the sails.
Alright, first things first, this kayak is in the way of our jib sheet, so we're going to put it over here and get everything else fixed up. You excited?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Alright. We decided to put the kayak strap to the side like that. Looks a lot more secure, shouldn't go anywhere. Come on. So it's a few hours later after setting everything up. Turns out Alex is really not feeling so hot, so I'm going to attempt to lift the anchor all on my own in about 20 knots of wind. So I can't seem to pull it up just with my own strength by myself, or I could, it's just going to be a big struggle. So what I'm going to try is to get Jittery Jackson here to give me a slight helping hand in idle and see how that goes. I'm just going to get it to the point where I can almost pull up the anchor and then see if we can pull it up from there. Let's see how it goes. I got it. No, it's in gear. 1 second. Alright. Alright, take it off auto. And you can help me steer the last little bit. We're almost up. Thanks for the help. Just gonna wash up and then you can go back. Alex, I gotta go to the bow just for a second, okay? I gotta go get the untangle the jib. It's okay. Watch out, waves. Why is it so messy? Pass me the handle. Thank you. There we go. Well, if you can't tell, we're back at the anchorage. That lasted a long time. Basically, we went out, as you'll see from some of the footage, and there was some pretty big waves. And I was okay with that for a while until one came up basically over the entire boat. I mean, at least we hit one and there was another one, big one right behind it. So we swamped the boat up to, not the side deck where you walk on either side, but up to the actual foredeck, I think it's called, or where the mast is stepped to. That was the biggest wave I've ever hit. And basically I just decided right there that it wasn't worth trying to beat into that and potentially damage something. Tomorrow the wind's supposed to be a little calmer, but we did have to pick up our anchor anyway because the wind's supposed to shift tomorrow, and we would have swung right into the rocks or into other boats that were moored. And we found out that it actually wasn't anchored or caught on a mooring because it came up fine. Well, it was stuck in there good, but it was just a lot of clay. So thank you, Mantus. Your anchor is still very good in my eyes. It just dragged a couple times, and it was probably because the bottom wasn't the nicest. But it held up during that crazy storm we had, up to 60 knot gusts, 30 some knot sustained. And now we're anchored in a slightly different spot because there was a couple boats anchoring near us, and I didn't really like how close they were and how little scope they were putting out. So now I'm trying another spot. So we're gonna stay here the night and then try to leave tomorrow. Hopefully Alex will feel a little better, and hopefully there'll be less waves, or they're supposed to be anyway. But honestly, I never thought, I mean, the waves are only calling for like half a meter, but that was not half a meter. I mean, you saw on the GoPro footage when I was untying the jib sheet, I had to jump over some water so not to get my shoes completely soaked. But that big wave, or the double or triple big waves that came through shortly after I turned off the GoPro were just insane. The wet parts of the inside of the boat, so I think we might have to rebed some chain plates on the port side. But anyway, yeah, that was eventful. I think it's time for a beer now. See you guys.